Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NXT October 16th, 2019 review. This show was pretty decent. It wasn't too bad. But it wasn't like it normally feels. I did listen to JD's review, JD from New York 206's review on this entire episode. I have to agree with him on a lot of his opinions on this. The show does not feel very much like how it used to, and I don't think it's because of because it's a 2-hour format. You still get a lot of what it used to be when it was just a 1-hour show. I just feel like because it's competing against AEW on a live program, and not to mention, you get to view it anytime you want. It takes the spectacle out of it a lot more so than what we've been used to. And more importantly, I think the big part of this is I think a lot of people are just fed up of WWE in general. I think that is the biggest problem. I mean, if you noticed, after Hell in a Cell, WWE overall as a whole has not gotten a lot of love from the fans. To be quite frank with you, I wasn't feeling it either for this episode. The wrestling was great. It was all there. NXT was there for what they were trying to pull off for this episode. The problem is that I just don't feel it for WWE anymore. I want to see them succeed, but knowing them for what they are now, it just doesn't seem to matter to me anymore. I even think that if NXT went to a 1-hour show and went back onto the network, I don't think people would give a fuck as much. And that's pretty fucking sad because this was a really great product. Now it's just kind of just feels like an average Joe product. And I think it has a lot to do with AEW. AEW does a lot of what NXT does for a wrestling fan. The thing is that AEW is the main roster. So what are you going to choose? A main roster? Or you're going to choose a developmental system, such as NXT. That is why NXT cannot win this so-called Wednesday Night Wars, which ain't much of a war anymore. It seems like every single time NXT loses to fucking AEW. So, this has nothing to do with how good or bad the show is of NXT. NXT is more just, it is what it is. It's a developmental system. It is not the legit company. The legit company is WWE. And that is why people do not care, they care about NXT, but they're not going to put NXT over watching AEW. Now, if fans want to get behind the idea of watching NXT first over AEW and watch AEW second and watch them online for free, which is how probably most people are watching this shit, or DVRing AEW, DVRing NXT right now, that's the only two ways you'd be able to watch this shit immediately after, is by watching it either illegally online or watching it by watching it DVR. So that's pretty much the whole situation here. That's the greatness about technology. It takes away the ability to actually get a legit rating. In truth, people are interested in both of these brands. But because of the fact they already got their fill of AEW, doesn't seem like that important to watch NXT when NXT is just the same thing that AEW is. And AEW is the main roster. That's the point what I'm trying to get with you guys. If NXT was the main roster of WWE and we were getting that kind of thing, AEW wouldn't even be a thing. AEW wouldn't even exist. And that's why fans are gravitating towards AEW. Now, I don't know the fucking ratings or anything that went on this today, what the results were, and quite frankly, I'm not going to report on that because that's not important. This is just strictly about NXT. I just was giving you guys an insight for 5 minutes about what I think is causing people to kind of lose that interest in NXT. Not like saying that they hate NXT, like in the sense of WWE type dislike, but not really hate, but just more along the lines of just discontent in a way. Just not really so connected with it as much as they were before. It's like, it's great, good stuff, entertaining stuff, but it's not like I'm going to jump for joy and go out of my way to watch it. I'm going to watch it on my own time. So that's just my opinion on that and how I feel about it. That's how I've kind of felt watching NXT last night after I watched AEW. So Tommaso Ciampa kicked things off for NXT against Angel Garza. This match went for about 5 to 8 minutes max. Match was pretty damn good. Angel Garza is a great talent and has terrific charisma, and he is just really a good talent that they really should push. He comes across like a very overinflated version of Alberto Del Rio, to me. He's more egocentric than Del Rio ever was, I think. Not to mention, he actually interacts with the crowd a hell of a lot more than Del Rio ever did. For example, he walked down the ramp and actually kissed a woman on the side of the face who's by the entranceway. And he just pops in and kisses her on the side of the cheek. And that was pretty fucking entertaining. So he is really interactive. He's really wanting to be involved in all of this. And he really gives off that heel persona very well. Tommaso Ciampa, outstanding, played a Sicilian psychopath in this matchup very well, even though he's not looked at as a heel anymore because he's gone over as a face, being the fact that he's challenging, or looks like he's challenging Adam Cole for the World Championship. So Tommaso Ciampa wins this match. After the match, Ciampa stands tall as the music hits. We go to replays. Fans chant "Welcome back" as Ciampa goes to his exit, and the music interrupts and comes out the Undisputed Era. NXT World Champion Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, the Tag Team Champions Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. They march to ringside as Ciampa takes a seat in a chair in the middle of the ring with a crutch in hand. Riley goes to the announcers and tosses the USB port drive and telling them they need to check it out. Which later you find out immediately after the break that this was an attack on Velveteen Dream by the Undisputed Era, displaying their dominance and control over the NXT roster in itself. They kind of managed to write off Velveteen Dream. I don't know if this is a real thing, like he is actually injured per se from previous matches that he might have had, or this was a way to bring about a new challenger to face Roderick Strong on television for a later match for Velveteen Dream to face Roderick Strong for the North American Championship on a bigger stage. So that's kind of where I'm getting with that. They tore him up. They ripped his clothes, his shirt completely off of him. He looked like he was banged up. They were selling it very well. Roderick Strong was talk trash and says this is what he gets for getting in his way. And Cole says the same thing will happen to Finn Balor if he becomes a problem. The Undisputed walks away with Dream still laid out. We also have Kyle O'Reilly last sentence saying Dream over, which I thought was a nice little catchy ending to that whole segment. So then we had Danny Burch and Arnie Lorcan. My God, I love those two guys. but they are the they are really the underdogs of this company, especially in the tag team division. And the Imperium and them had a awesome match, but Imperium won this match hands down. This match was not a bad match whatsoever. Definitely was a match that you could say, hey, this is raising their stock in the tag team division as contenders for the tag team titles. Now, my opinion on this, and I'll get into that once I get to where I'm going to be at with talking about the Undisputed Era defending the tag team titles, but we're going to get to Oi Shirai versus Caden Carter. Oi Shirai has a quick win here. Very short, sweet to the point, and that was it. After the match, Shirai stands tall as her music hits. We go to replays, of course. Shirai takes the mic as fans cheer for her. They chant her name now. Shirai says it's not Rhea Ripley. It's not Bianca Belair. It's not the NXT Women's Champion Shayna Baszler. It's all about Io. The music interrupts and out comes Ripley to the ring. Rhea enters the ring and faces off with Shirai in the middle. Fans chant Rhea's name and Shirai goes to speak, but Rhea snatches the mic ferociously out of her hand. Rhea says last week Belair ran her mouth, and next week Rhea gets to put her back in her place. But if Shirai ever puts Rhea's name in her mouth again, she has no problem shutting Shirai up too. Fans chant fight. Now as they face off, Shirai smiles and backs off, talking trash in Japanese. Rhea tosses the mic and stares her down. Fans continue chanting Rhea's name as Shirai makes her exit from the ring, still talking trash. Rhea's music hits and to the end of the segment. So that was pretty much the whole situation there. My opinion, straight up, Rhea Ripley is the legit person that can beat Shayna Baszler in a believable matchup here. I don't think it's Bianca Belair. I don't believe it's Oi Shirai. Oi Shirai would be another Kairi Sane type situation. And I sure as hell do not believe that Candice LeRae or any person can really beat this woman legitimately unless they get a very lucky win, which would then lead to another rematch and probably the title flipping back to Shayna Baszler again, which I don't believe we should do. I think that NXT should focus on finding the next legitimate wrestler that can take this title off of her, making it look legit. Rhea Ripley is that person. She's got the body mass, the size, she's got the toughness look of her. She looks like a rough and tough chick. So she ain't got any looks. She ain't no gorgeous looking, woman you would want to take in a sack and fuck. I mean, she probably is not exactly what you call the person you want to, go out on a date with. It depends on your taste or how you feel about the way she looks. Now, me personally, her face needs to be a little bit worked on, but her body, I'm all good for. But that's not the point. The point is what she can do in the ring. She is a very dominant woman. She has that presence. She looks intimidating. Even to a man, she would be intimidating to. If you put her in a ring with a fucking male wrestler, she would be believable. She looks like a new version of China. Let me just put it that way. So now we go ahead and get this rubber match. But before we do, we find out that William Regal wants to announce that the North American Championship would be determined between Dominic Dijakovic and Keith Lee. This became a number one contenders match. Now, if you guys remember last week, I did mention when they advertised Keith Lee and Dominic Dijakovic that what is the point of this? what's the point of having a third match that really has no purpose of them fighting over? Well, hence, ladies and gentlemen, we got a reason for why they're fighting each other this time. They got an opportunity to get the NXT North American Championship opportunity. I think that's great. They took an opportunity, they took something away from someone and turned it into a positive by giving it to two people that need something to get them into relevancy, into being relevant on this program. This is a great way of doing so. They even go a step higher than that. They have both of these guys have an awesome matchup and then end it with Roderick Strong having it become a no contest because he attacked them both. Now, I will say this. We've seen this happen on many different occasions. The heel goes ahead, thinks that he can get disqualify both men at the same time, making it where there's no winner and he's not going to have to defend his title. Now, let's be honest with ourselves. Is that ever going to happen? Of course not. We've seen this 1,000 times. The reason I'm still okay with it is because these two guys have a legitimate right to compete against each other. This is also going to lead to the Undisputed Era jacking both of these fuckers out of not getting the North American Championship, which then could lead an emergence of an ally to make Dominik Dijakovic allies with Keith Lee. That is a fucking great idea, which then can make them a tag team. They build some chemistry. They see what, they know what each other can do. They both have respect for each other, so they create an actual tag team, which hence allows them to be number one contenders, since there's no legit tag teams right now that are important, and since these guys have been hyped up so much in 3 of their matches that have been spectacular, and then putting them in a North American Championship, screwing them both out of the title this time around, gives them a reason to want to join forces, become a tag team, and possibly jack over the fucking NXT Tag Team Championships from the Undisputed Era, which I think Kyle O'Reilly and fucking Bobby Fish versus these two guys would be a great fucking match at a pay-per-view. Personally, I still believe Undisputed Era should be going ahead and having a match in the War Games matchup against the contenders for their championships. That's how this whole main event match is going to boil down to. So that's just my overall feelings. The people I think that will be involved in this, I think they should go with Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic. I've got to pronounce that fucking name correctly. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. I think those two guys should be the focal point for the tag team titles. So they should be in as the tag team against the Undisputed Era. And I think we should have Tommaso Ciampa as the leader of that team going into War Games. And we have not Finn Balor, but Velveteen Dream if he's healthy. Now, if he's not healthy, if this is a legit injury, or he can't make it because of his injury, I think you should have Finn Balor going after Roderick Strong for the time being. Just to give Finn Balor something to do. But yeah, that's how I kind of envision this War Games pay-per-view main event match is going to turn out to be. Because it got nothing else storyline-wise going on here to give me a reason to think that this is going to be... There's any other idea what could War Games be like. So that's just the way I think about it. That's how I'm looking at it. I mean, Velveteen Dream was fucking beaten to hell. But me personally, I think Velveteen Dream, Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, and Dominik Dijakovic should be the 4 men facing the Undisputed Era in War Games. This should be an opportunity here where they determine whether or not the challengers in this match if they win, they all become number one contenders for those titles specifically. So if they win, of course, all 4 of those titles will be on the line going into January's pay-per-view, which then they can build storylines for each 4 of those not each 4 of those, all 3 titles throughout the remaining weeks leading into January for the Royal Rumble. So that leaves them 2 whole months to do some really good storytelling throughout the entire time they're leading up to their January pay-per-view. And that's what I think. I think that's the best route they need to go on. Matt Riddle versus Bronson Reed. This was a one-sided beatdown. Matt Riddle won hands down, no problem. It was nothing important to me, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. Kushida got a hairline fracture on his wrist, and he's going to be out for a while. And Tanera versus Tegan Nox. Tegan Nox is actually a UK wrestler who was in the women's the Mae Young Classic, and she was actually a very high prospect to win, and she ended up getting a severe injury. She's having her first ever matchup, and so she goes to the ring and she performs very decently. Very solid, crisp match. Nothing bad I saw here. I mean, she's got some work to do. I mean, she's still probably dealing with that injury, being concerned about re-injuring it or something like that, I'd imagine. After the match, we get some more hype up for the NXT Women's Championship. My God, they're making Shayna Baszler be public. Man, my fucking talking today sucks. They are because... Let me start over. Shayna Baszler is becoming public enemy number 1 in this company for the Women's Championship. Let me put it to that way. Fucking Tegan Nox, who only had one freaking match, wants a shot for the Women's Championship. That makes that title seem fucking prestigious. Not to mention Shayna Baszler carrying it around and doing what she's been doing, and what they've been doing with her over these last few years has made it prestigious. Not to mention Asuka was a big help to that as well. So yeah, Tegan Nox, she gets an interruption by Shayna Baszler. She comes down, makes some announcements saying, hey, I think you want to get a shot at my championship. And Baszler says, well, Nox is running out of limbs to rehab. So Nox and Dakota Kai talk some trash, and Baszler says Nox isn't even worthy of a title shot and should call her when she's done something. That's true. She hasn't done anything important yet. She won one fucking match. Big deal. Come on. Get real with yourself. Killian Dane and Boa, I don't even understand why they had this on the card. This was a fucking joke. One-sided beatdown, several different Vader bombs, and a finishing maneuver submission by Killian Dane to win. Wow. This was a throwaway match. Could have put this on Monday Night Raw, for God's sakes. Pete Dunne versus Damian Priest. This matchup, people were fucking invested in. People were entertained. People saw a big reason for this match to even be on their card for NXT television. This match I definitely would see on television, but I also think it would have been better if it was done on TakeOver War Games as a grudge match. And I think you're still going to see that because the ending of this matchup was not a very pretty ending. Now, they made Damian Priest look like a fucking evil villain, and he portrayed that villain very well with the big grin on his face when he went for the pinfall after he managed to kick him in the balls while the referee couldn't see it. So, for that reason alone, I think that plays a big part into why they should do a rematch here at NXT TakeOver. But the fans were actually booing, and the referee somehow didn't see the low blow. Priest follows up with the Reckoning for the pinfall and the win. And that's pretty much how the whole thing goes. After the match, Priest stands tall to celebrate as his music hits. We go to replays. Priest makes his exit and stands tall on the ramp, firing his imaginary arrows and smiling back at the ring as Dunn recovers on the mat. NXT then goes off the air. And that's pretty much the whole gist of this show. So there wasn't much to it. There really wasn't. There's also another thing I want to mention that I didn't mention earlier when I was talking about NXT's lost its little aura about itself. I think it also has a lot to do with us watching AEW and seeing a big fucking crowd like what we are seeing with AEW. And I actually feel that same way. And this is something that JD did mention in his video, so I'm not going to take full-on credit for what I'm saying. But it was something I was thinking to myself. But since I did watch his show first before I did my own review on this, I will admit one thing. JD is 100% right about this. They put over a big crowd for AEW. AEW goes in these bigger venues like WWE would. You see like 10 to 15,000 people, while you're watching NXT, and it's in Full Sail University with only about 500 to 1,000 people able to watch this shit inside Full Sail. Now, like I mentioned before, and I have mentioned this on the last couple of reviews since AEW started, I did mention NXT needs to go every once in a while to a live show in a big venue, like 15,000 people. Let them perform in Madison Square Garden. Let them perform in Boston. Let them perform in some major big city once in a while. They don't have to full on be away from Full Sail. Full Sail is the reason why people loved NXT. So don't completely eliminate Full Sail out of it. But every once in a while, you got 4 weeks in a month generally. You can take 2 weeks out of the month and have them show off their skills in front of a much bigger crowd. But once in a while, if you're going to have a good, decent show, have it on Full Sail. But if you're going to have like a World Championship match or a NXT Women's Championship match that you can make really seem important, you want to do it on a fucking big scale. So I think that would be something good for that. Prime example, that NXT TakeOver type card on an NXT show, that should have been in a fucking bigger venue. That's just my opinion. But you can't do it too much, because then you take away the big interest in the NXT TakeOver events. Now, my opinion about NXT TakeOver eventually could lead into them performing in a fucking stadium type situation. People love this fucking brand. I don't care if the ratings read that they have 0 people watching on live television. I guarantee you they still are watching it in some capacity, some way, somehow. It doesn't matter if it's live or not. There's many other ways to watch this shit where you don't have to take the time out of your life to go watch it specifically on a time slot. There's fucking DVRs you can use. You can use online viewership for streaming this shit. And you got the WWE Network to watch it on the next day. So, at the end of the day, guys, this company's losing out. So, they need to focus on trying to do other things. And I really do believe they need to take the NXT shows off the WWE Network to at least get those people that are watching it on the WWE Network the next day off of there, so that they will maybe get some people that are tuning in for AEW to say, hey, I have no way of watching NXT. Like, for instance, if they don't choose to go online and watch it the other way, like from off of Daily Motion or something like that, which is another type of YouTube channel, another YouTube website, then they will go out of their way and tune in for that fucking show. They might actually do that. There's no incorrect thing of doing it. They could always go about testing that theory out and see how it works out for them in a month. Maybe their ratings will go up a little every week. But I think that has a lot to do why their fucking ratings are depleting week after week. But that's all I have to say on this subject. Hit the like button if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below. I'll get back to you on that. And hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel. And I thank you very much for watching and have a great night, guys. Bye.